Swallow. You know, swallow. Because my parents wish I can enjoy for me. So that is my name. And this is my personal introduction. I'm a doctor of Hunan Normal University and majored in law. So I'm not an English teacher. So maybe your English is better than me. And I have presided over 5 scientific research projects above the provincial level and published almost 30 high-level academic papers. I have been teaching here for more than 10 years, and my teaching major includes jurisprudence, economic law, environmental law, legal English for Chinese students, and also introduction to Chinese law for the international students. Why do our university provide the introduction to Chinese law for the courses for the international students? So what's the reason? Let's look at some data and cases. Up to now, China has made an agreement with many countries for exchanging students for further study. So you can see that more than 108 countries and has welcomed almost 500,000 international students. And countries, nearly 200 countries. But both the universities and the international students, because they did not know the Chinese law or did not know the rules in the universities, and their behaviors may violate the norms. So the ministry punished 18 universities for irregularities, international students admission, and certificate insurance, and 16 institutions were suspended to enroll foreign students last year. So there are many international students. Let's look some example, look some cases. This is a very beautiful girl, right? His name is Qiaolina in Chinese, Qiaolina, and he's an international student from Hubei University. And he became very popular in China because he took part in a dating program. The name is If You Are the One. Do you know this program? Dating program. No? You may search the internet. And because he spent many time taking part in the activities, and he has little time to do his study. So he couldn't write her doctoral dissertation, and he cannot obtain doctoral degree within the specified time, and was later dismissed by Hubei Normal University. And also many other international students. Look at this. In November 2019, Central South University of Finance, Economics, and Law. Do you know the university?
Yeah.
In Hubei province. And announced the withdrawal of 4 foreign students. 3 of them violated the school rules, and 1 applied for dropping out for personal reasons. And in the same year, Fudan University, you know, in Shanghai. In Shanghai. Dismissed 12 graduate students, most of whom were international students, and also in Beijing, Renmin University, you know, with very high level in our country. And dismissed 16 undergraduate students, including many foreign students. This year, on April 26, Shanghai Jiao University, you don't know, and dismissed 19 foreign graduate students. So in recent years, many international students do not familiar with the rules in the school or the laws, though maybe their behaviors will offend others or not conform to the university required. So that's why we have this course. So I will introduce all kinds of rules in our China to you, and also we will introduce about the norms or regulations in our university. So look at two cases. First is international student A. Suppose that I didn't write his name. A. And he thought that the university's curriculum arrangement and teaching plan were unreasonable. So he refused to participate in course assessment and compelled to the authorities and required the university to rectify. So I will ask you, do you think or can his appeal be supported by the law? I don't know the provisions in your country, but suppose that if you confronted with the same thing, do you think you have the right to complain? Or the authority will support your complaint? Do you think? Why? Why? So that will be two different things. First one is, do you have the right? The second one is, you have the right. However, the authorities, whether the authorities have obligation to receive your complaint. These are two different things. And the next case is international student B failed to register below the time limit specified the university and failed to fulfill the registration procedure and did not participate in the teaching activities stipulated by the university without asking for leave. And he was dismissed by the school. So he was not satisfied and compelled to the local educational authorities. Does he have the right to do it so? No. So, first, everyone here have the right to education, right? Education. And I can choose which university I will attend. And if I think the teachers is not very well, so maybe I will not attend the class. So this is the right, yes or no, that will depend on who will spend the fees for education. So I will ask you a question. The study fees, do you afford the study fees, or your parents or your government? Which authorities provide the teaching fees for you? By yourself? Parents? Parents most of the time. So how many study fees provided by your parents? Put on your hands. All of you?
That's personal question.
Personal question. So, Concerning about the law, we should realize one thing. Some rights provided by the law. However, some rights provided by the agreement. So in China, if you has arrived 18 years old, do you have 18 years old or under it? Haven't reached 18 years old, right? So in China, if you have arrived 18 years old, so you'll be seen as adult, and our parents have no right to afford the study fee. So, but actually, almost every parents will take the money. That's because they love me, right? They love us. So, exactly, if the fee is paid by yourself, not your parents, so the agreement between you and the school, and you have a right to choice, stay here to listen to the course or go out. It's your right. But if the fee is paid by your parents, in fact, you and your parents have agreement, right? And why the parents will pay the money? Because they wish you will learn many things, further study, right? That's their help. And you received their help. And your obligation is to come here, listen to the teacher, and learn stuff and learn something. So, exactly, this will belongs to the laws regulation, without punishment, but belongs to the law. So, next question is, if you are not satisfied with the teaching plan, or not satisfied with the rules in the school, do you have rights to complain? Of course you can. This is your right. And it is included in educational rights. But whether the authority will accept this kind of complaint, will be another thing. So why? Because in our country, we have another rules to regulate this kind of thing. So look at this. Ministry of Education published in 2017 administrative measures for recruiting and training international students in schools. This is effective laws. And in these laws stipulated that, look at here, the legal rights of institutions of higher learning include Article 7, institutions of higher learning that recruit international students shall have the corresponding educational and teaching conditions and training ability, and independently recruit international students in accordance with relevant provisions of the state. So here, what is independently recruit? That means each university, they can decide the curriculum, the teaching arrangement, examination form, discipline rules, limit arrangement, special requirements during their academic period. So different universities have different provisions, but if you attend this university, you must obey, you must follow, abide by, right? So, because all these things, curriculum, teaching plan, and discipline rules are controlled by the university, and he has freedom to decide how. So, if you take the appeals to the authority has no right to order the university to change it. Do you know? It has no right to order the university to change it. So you can state what you think, but it didn't lead to the consequence you want. It maybe will not lead to the consequence. And next, look at Article 10. Institution of higher learning independently determine the enrollment place and measures. So if you feel something is not satisfied, how can you do? First, you can also make the complaints. Please keep quiet, okay? You can make your appeal to the authority, but I think the effective way of doing it is to communicate with the office. I think it is the best way. So, because above reasons, Ministry of Education stresses that universities should also teach international students. Please sit in here. Right. There's some stress, or you can find it in other classroom. Okay. So universities should teach international students relevant laws and regulations in China, and students who violate those laws and regulations or commit crimes will be dealt with seriously. Later, I will introduce all kinds of laws for you. But first, we should know that there are great differences between norms and laws. A norm is different from laws. For example, the rules in our university, do you think, is it a law? No, of course not. Why? Why? Because the rules pronounced by the university, not by the state, right? Yes. So, first, I will introduce something related to our university. First, not in law, but first I will introduce some norms in university. First question, do you think who are international students? Who are international students? Suppose that one of your friends miss you very much, and come to Changsha, and attend our class with you, and studied for 1 month. Is her international student? So that will depend on the rules in the university. Look at this. Look at this law. Article 2, the term international students are mentioned in this measures refers to foreign students who do not have Chinese nationality. Of course, your friends have not Chinese nationality, right? And received education in schools according to the nationality law of the People's Republic of China. So, who are international students must meet 2 requirements. First is have no Chinese nationality, and second is receive education in schools or universities. So do you think your friend is an international student? If he accompany with you and stay here for many times to study, do you think yes? No. Why? Because receive education in schools means that everyone should go through the formal procedure, go through the formal procedures, and receive the student status. So that will be seen as the receive educational schools. Whenever he accompanies with you how many times. That will not conform to it. So this is the first question. Next, what norms should international students abide by when you study and live in China? Do you have the right to challenge the rules of your university? If there is any objection, to which point, and what are the consequences? As I tell you just now. So I think you can make sure about it. And next, some other rights and obligations in the law. We can see that. Article 12, institutions of higher learning shall examine the admission qualifications and economic guarantee certifications of foreign citizens who have applied for registration and conduct examinations on you. And the admission of international students shall be decided by the university. So there is another problem, is that university is a social organization. So in order to ensure its regular operation, necessary to formulate the campus norms. So you can see it. I will not read it, okay? Next. Let's see some legal obligations of colleges and universities. First, Article 25. Institutions of higher learning shall educate international students in the aspects of Chinese law and regulations. We have mentioned before. And here is another thing. International students under the age of 18 and whose parents are not resident in China. So your parents resident in China? No, right? And the school shall require your parents to formally entrust a foreigner or Chinese resident in China as a guardian of their international students and provide relevant supporting materials. So do you know what is guardian? Yes, I think everyone will choose someone to be the guardian. But suppose that if you injure the others, or damage the other's property, so according to law, you must compensate, right? But you have no money. So, how to resolve the problem? According to law, we will find the guardian to represent you, no, or change other words, to pay the money. So the guardian's obligation is very large. And another thing is, we will, when I introduce the civil code in China, we will tell you what's the rights and obligation about the guardians. So later I will tell you. Next, for the international students, what's the obligation or what's the right about you? So look at this, Article 3. International students shall abide by Chinese laws and regulations, respect Chinese customs and habits, and shall participate in the study of courses in accordance with the curriculum arrangements and teaching place of institution of higher learning. And also schools shall truthfully record your academic performance and daily performance. It's simple. Next. Look at here. Do international students have to take part in the celebrations of China's major festivals? Do you think have to? No. Next, can you hold activities on campus to celebrate important traditional festival in your country? No. If you make application, maybe you have the right. So, look at this. International students may voluntarily participate in public welfare activities. Voluntary. You can choose take part in or not. And universities generally do not organize international students to participate in military training and political activities. This is the obligation for the university. Next. Yeah. With the consent of an institution of higher learning, international students may hold activities to celebrate important international traditional festival of your country, but must be in the places, areas designated by university. You have no right to 超过. Do you hear any Chinese word? Do you know?
Yeah.
超过界限. Do you know? Exceed the limited range that will be constitute violate the law. Okay. And there should be no contents against or attacking. Here, look here. There should be no contents against or attacking other countries. Not only refer to China, but between the international students among you, right? And not violate public morality. Here, whether the words or deed also constitute crime, also constitute a violation. So you can, you should be careful of what you say, and you should be careful of what you did. Okay, and the content of your said or the content of your behavior must respect the other countries. Okay. So there are another rights. With the approval of an institution of higher learning, international students may establish a friendship group within the school and carry out activities within the scope of prescribed by Chinese norms. So what is or what kind of activities that within the scope prescribed by Chinese norms? Do you know? Suppose that if you want to make something related to the religious, so maybe something will 超过了, exceed the scope of prescribed by Chinese laws. That will depend on the rules related to the religious beliefs. So this is next question. Can international students preach or have religious gatherings? Can you ask schools to provide places for religious activities? Should be yes. Should be yes. Just to say is that it is not right.
Because all of us will have
yes. Many of you, all of you have religious.
Maximum.
Okay, you have this. First, institutions of higher learning show respect. Respect religious belief. It's okay. You can do anything related to the religious in your home, in your dormitory by yourself. It's okay. But should not provide places for religious activities. So this means that not everything you do is okay. But if you do it by yourself, it's okay, it's permitted. However, you want to organize all the believers, the person who has the same belief or another kind of beliefs together, is not permitted. Okay? No religious activities such as missionary activities, religious gatherings are allowed in schools, in universities. So please care about it. So why? What's the reason about it? Please.
So if like they gather in their rooms or something, like a place where the university didn't provide, is it against the law of the university?
I beg your pardon?
If they gather religious gatherings, like they do religious gatherings.
Outside the university?
No, like in the university bus.
University?
Maybe in our rooms, because the room
in your rooms?
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
That will make application to the 教务处 schools students office and receive their permission. It's okay. Okay?
It's no permission.
Simple permission. Something
If you
you
don't have a permission, then it's considered that you disobey.
Don't have permission.
Yeah, if you don't have a
If they don't permit you to do this kind of thing, I suggest that maybe you will do it respectfully, but not come together. Okay? First I will tell you that my oral English is not very good. So if you have any question, please speak it slowly, and maybe you can use this form and translate it into Chinese. I think that I will answer it very well. Okay. But please note that this is not special for the foreign students. For our Chinese students, this also it is the same situation. Not for the foreign students, but for our Chinese students, we must abide by. So, because if we allow all kinds of religious activities happen, so there may be some battles. So that's the reason why we allow, we can do it by itself, but not gathering. So this is the purpose of the law. Okay? So next question. If you feel that I have no money, so can you earn money by working off campus? So some of you have a chance to earn money outside the campus? Any of them? Any of you? No? So if you have chance, if the TV find you, so you are very beautiful, please come here and I will pay 200 per hour for you and take part in the program. Maybe it will happen. Some advertisements need foreign people, right? So maybe it happens. So if it happens, do you have the right to take part in? No. Why? You have this. During your studies in institutions of higher learning, international students may participate in work-study activities. So there's some difference between work-study activities and commercial activities or business activities. So what is work-study? Please?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So what if you are not getting paid? Is that okay?
Learn for free.
Yeah, just kidding.
Getting what?
If you are not getting money from it. you can
Oh, if you want no money, but you take part in a activities, is it okay? That will depend how the stipulations in your university. So in our university, we have explicitly provisions. So you this kind of thing, you will also acquire the officer's permission. It's also the same thing. So, but you are permitted to take part in the work-study activities. So, what is work-study activities? That means it allows you to spend very little time. Some university allow students just 1 hour each day to do.
Part-time job.
For example, you can to the restaurant in the campus and type the materials for the student, for the teachers, such things. So, but not permitted to engage in the business activities. So, I know that in our university we have no rules, no norms about what is the range of work study. But when you have this requirement, this 需要 need, you most of the time will according to the other universities' regulations. Not is not university, but other university. So sometimes we'll take the same standard. So work study, the conditions of work study. First, you must pass the examination in all compulsory and optional courses. So that means do these things will not affect you study. And no violation of school rules and regulations or Chinese laws during the period when you study. Third, it is an effective insurance protection plan that sets plans for accidents. So, if you want to take part in the work study, and maybe you must have effective insurance protection plan. So, the time and the scope, you can see that no more than 8 hours per week, and no more than 40 hours per month. It is not a work study program, such as participating in commercial performance or in commercial signing and dancing entertainment places. And must be within the scope permitted by Chinese law and regulations. Here, do you know what circumstance will constitute within the scope permitted by Chinese laws and regulations? Maybe you think that there is no need to write this sentence, right? But sometimes, when you receive the work study, you must exactly know what you will do. For example, cloning, do you know? Human cloning, do you know? The research of human cloning cloning is not permitted in China. But some universities will do this kind of research. So, if you are the students, take part in the activities, these kind of activities, and engaged in the researching of colonials, that will constitute violation of the law. So it's not permitted. So each time when you decide to take part in any activities, you must make sure about it, the content, about the content. So, can we have a rest? Yes, please, 10 minutes, okay? It's most important. So we can see that that's meaning. So what is right? Right is a kind of freedom. That means you have choice. You can decide where, how to do this, to do some acts, to do the behavior. But this kind of freedom is not given by any others, but by law. That means the state organs give you the freedom, not anyone else. Not the religion organization, not the other social organizations, but by the legislative control. And the legislative structure is different from other government. So we couldn't say that this right come from the government, but we can say that it come from, it is the source of the legislative structure. So that's the difference. For the subject to act or not to act. Next thing is obligation. Obligation is a kind of restriction. That means behavior is restricted, and you have no choice. You just obey it or not obey it. So if you don't obey it, you will receive some responsibility or sanctions. But most of the time, right, they are corresponding, they are intimate relationship about rights and obligations. For example, in China, the minors have the right of education, but because he is a minor, he is underage, so sometimes he cannot realize the right? He cannot realize this kind of right. So this kind of right will be realized by the parents. So in the law, at the same time, the parents also have the obligation of education. That obligation of education is to help to ensure the right of their minors' education. So they have intimate relationship between right and obligation. There exists at the same time. So we say that there is no obligation without right, and there is no right without obligation. So we can see that right and obligation is very, very important in the law. In every country, it's the same. But sometimes, if you have the obligation and do not realize it, maybe you will not be punished. Maybe sometimes, because if the circumstance is not very harmful to the society. So if what you do some great harm to the society, and there will be responsibility. But there's some difference between responsibility and sanctions. That means sometimes you will bear the responsibility but will not be punished. So what's the difference? Because responsibility means a negative evaluation. That is the evaluation. Evaluation means that maybe the state organs think or thought that what you did is not good to the society, but maybe it will not harm. So I give you a negative evaluation. For the same example, as I told you that in China, if the parents do not send their children to school, the state organ will give negative evaluation, but sometimes will not punish them. Because if his children have no chance to school, doesn't do great harm to the society. However, if kill someone else, maybe cause great harm to the society. So that's the difference. So in fact, sometimes responsibility will lead to sanctions, but in turn, maybe not. So, sanctions, what is sanctions? Sanctions means punitive measures imposed by the state on those who bear legal responsibility. Punitive measures. What is punitive measures? Sometimes expressed as providing your personal liability, right? And sometimes expressed as losing your property. That is punitive measures. So, for the responsibility, in the most of the time, will realized by sanctions. Last one, power. What is power? Power is different from right. So for the right, obligation, responsibility, and sanctions, maybe every natural person or every entity will have, or maybe suffered. But the power has the specific subject. We all know that state organ has power, right? Has power. So the power means the ability of state organs to create, maintain, or change social relations. So we can find in every country, in every law, there must be many provisions about the power of the states, of the power of the enforcement of the law. Sometimes relating to the number, the kinds of the enforcement agency. That is the power. So, why we need the power? Why we need the power? Suppose that if the power is not belong to the state organ, but for everyone have the power. So that's what will happen. Maybe will cause social cause, right? Social disorder. So we must concentrate some rights of natural person and gathered and give this name power and be sent to the state organ. And the state organ will represent the ordinary people to realize the power. So how to realize the power? How to realize the power? That means if someone is sanctions, if he must be lost their property, or had to be deprived of their personal freedom, state organ has the power to realize it. So why we need this? So all of the 5 elements is the contents of law in every country. Next, let's have a look at some rights, obligation, the ability, or sanctions in China. I give you the example in civil code, in Chinese civil code, and in Chinese criminal law. We can see that what is rights. It states that both husband and wife in civil code have the freedom to participate in production, work, study, and social activities, and one party should not restrict or interfere with the other. So if you see the word freedom, that means the right. So look at this. I think this the position of women in China is very high, maybe you any other countries, because we can decide whether I will take part in work, study, or social activities, and my husband have no right to limit our behavior. And many friends, because I'm a woman, many friends or many wives in their school in China, Chinese women will do not housework. Yes, and I didn't know how to cook. Really, I didn't know how to cook. And sometimes husband in China will help their wife to do some housework. Even will take care of their children. It's the same thing in China, especially in the city. You can see you can ask any teacher, especially the how to say 女教师, women teacher. Do you know how to work? Maybe some tell you no, I don't know. So I sometimes I think it's my freedom, so I can choose to study how to cook and also have the freedom to I will not. So that's freedom. Next, obligation. Obligation means that look at the example. Husband and wife shall be faithful to each other, respect each other, and care for each other. So we all know that what is faithful, right? And respect each other. So if you have the religious behavior, belief, I will respect it. It also is an obligation. So if you see the word shall, that means obligation. But as I told you that, sometimes you violate the obligation. Maybe you will not suffer some punishment. But if you do these things, arrive at the provisions of the law, that will take liability. For this, you can see that in case of any of the following circumstances, such as bigamy or cohabitation with the other person, the innocent party should have the right to claim damages. So you know what is damages?
Yeah.
Yes. Damages means that if someone violates the obligation of being faithful to their spouse, to their wife or their husband, and he must pay some money to the other party, to the wife or to the husband. But if the citizen is severely, so look at this. In criminal law in China, 258 stipulates that crime of bigamy, whoever has a spouse and bigamy or knowingly marries another person with a spouse shall be sentenced to fixed term imprisonment of not more than 2 years or criminal detention. So that means that if once your behavior is reached the line of the criminal law and it will not regulated by the civil law. So sometimes the same behavior may be related to different laws. So at the same time, if you commit the crime of bigamy, not only you will be paid money, but also maybe you will deprived of personal liberty in China. But you see that there's some difference. Here, there are two citizens. Firstly is bigamy, right? Secondly is cohabitation with another person. What's the difference about bigamy and cohabitation with another person?
Having two spouses at the same time.
Both at the same time? Normally, we say that cohabitation with another person means that they live together. Live together. But maybe did not register. But in fact, they are non-citizens. That means both of the people do not do registration. But they said to other people that the relationship between us are husband and wife. So this kind of thing maybe constitute bigamy.
So Chinese girl can do this?
What?
Bigamy?
Becoming?
Yeah.
Being regarded as bigamy. If you say to other people that this is my wife and I'm a husband, even if you do not do the register, but tell others that we are sponsors, maybe will constitute bigamy.
So
Live together.
One is legal, another is unlegal.
Cohabitation. This is all violated law, but violate different law. If you cohabitation with another person, you maybe pay some money, can resolve the dispute. But if you not only cohabitation with other people and constitute a crime of bigamy, not only you will pay, but maybe you will be deprived of personal freedom in China. So that's the difference. So we can see that liability and sanction can be divided into civil, administrative, and criminal at the same time. Look at this. Let's see some Chinese law, the system of Chinese law. Do you know the Chinese caricature? Do you know? No? So let's look at this. Okay, you know. The legal system, we can see that divided into two parts. First is 7 legal departments in China and 3 levels of legal norms. 3 levels. First, the legal departments include constitution and related laws. It has the most enforcement. And the next, next is civil and commercial law, administrative law, economic law, social law. So what is social law? That refers to provisions concerning to the minors, elderly people, or disabled people, or some women. So criminal law, we all know that. Litigation and non-litigation claims. What's litigation? That means the steps to bring the case to court, such as how to bring the lawsuit and what kind of materials should we prepare, etc. Also about some time limits of litigation. So that's all regulated by the litigation or non-litigation claims. 3 levels of legal norms include general law, administrative regulation. We can from now about that. The administrative regulation should be made by the administrative organs, right? Next, local regulations, such as Hunan province, Hubei province, have a right to make local regulations. And autonomous regulations, such as Hong Kong, Aumen, Xiangdang, Aumen, macro. And special regulations, such as regulations relating to the elderly people or disabled people. That is special regulations. All of this constitute the system of Chinese law. So, look at meaning, concept. First, what is constitution and related laws? Related laws. amendments to the Constitution. The year before last, China amendments the Constitution, and it constitutes the related laws. And regional national autonomy, such as Hong Kong, special administrative region, and the basic law of the macro, special administrative region. So you can, if you have chance to go to Hong Kong or macro, you will find the legal system is entirely different from province in 大陆
So I need to pass.
Because there, 我们实行的是 one country with two systems. Sometimes the legal system in Hong Kong or macro may be similar with your countries. Sometimes.
So I have to get visa to go Macau or Hong Kong.
What?
Need visa?
What is visa?
D-I-S-A.
B-I-A-S. Visa. Oh, but what's the difference?
Residence permission.
Ah?
Resident permission.
By measure. What is measure?
Resident permission.
Oh, accident.
Resident.
They ask if it's necessary to get a visa to go there.
Oh, if it's necessary to give visa to Hong Kong or to Macau,
Yeah.
so I don't know what's the conditions about. Maybe I couldn't hear, I couldn't understand. What
I
is-
want to go Hong Kong.
You want Hong Kong?
Yeah,
so
I want to go
must
Hong Kong.
give the permission about the authorities.
You told us.
Oh, you say how to give them the permission to Hong Kong?
Yeah, right.
Oh, you can check the internet. Check the internet.
If someone has a Chinese visa already, he can use to go to Hong Kong, Macau.
Last class have no this circumstance. If you want, I will find, and the next class maybe I can tell you. Okay, maybe. And next, territorial sea, and agent, and also about the organic law, and deputies, flag law, national emblem. So do you know what is national emblem in China? National emblem. What's the picture?
I saw.
You saw. So later I will introduce it to you. And also some elections laws, nationality. So look at this. It's the definition. I think maybe you can take the picture of the PPT because the teacher in the office forbid me to send the PPT to you privately. I must send the PPT to the office, and maybe they will check it and they will send it to you. So sometimes in the definition you can take the picture for your phone about the definition. So what is, because I see that everyone has no textbook, right? Has no textbook. I don't know. Must ask for the office. But it will, look at this. Civil law address the legal relations among the subjects with legal status. Legal status, such as contract law, commercial law. And administrative law address the legal relations among unequal subjects. That means the state organ and the natural person. You have no choice, just obey it. And next is economic law. Involves states' macro control of the economy and the relations of the markets, such as levy law, fiscal law, and tax law, financial law, anti-unfair competition law, and anti. So this. Social law, yes, guarantee the rights, interests of special groups and disadvantaged groups in society, such as labor law, law on protection of minors, protection of rights of the elderly, women's rights, and disabled persons. I think it's very simple. So look at this. Look at this. The criminal in China. There are 5 kinds of principal punishments in China. Include from light to heavy, include control, detention, fixed term imprisonment, life imprisonment, death penalty. Yes. There are death penalty in China.
Sorry. That's weird.
There are 3 kinds of additional penalties. What is additional penalties? That means if you are committing some crimes, maybe conduct may be punished such as fixed term imprisonment. At the same time, it will be additive. Fines, deprivation of political rights, confiscation of property, and to the foreigners, there are deportation. What is control? What is control? Do you know that what is control? Control relating to the light circumstance. Light circumstance. That means that this kind of behavior do not very great harm to the society, but it reached the line of crime. So if the person is the control means that the person, it is not necessary to put the man into prison for the control. Not necessary to put the man into prison. He can stay at home and do his work, and he also can receive the salaries. But regularly, he have to report to the community. Report to the community about what he did. So that is control. What is detention? Detention means that temporarily limited personal freedom, not less than 1 month, but not more than 6 months. If several crimes maybe together will not exist 1 year, that is detention. But if the person is committed detention and he also can receive salaries from his labor, but if he is fixed term imprisonment, whatever he done, his labor will not receive salaries. That's the difference. Now, the time of imprisonment and what's he and the labor, maybe someone, maybe the former can receive, and the later have no chance to receive. The difference. And some class asked me, in the last class asked me that how many crimes in China related to the death penalty. How many times? So I'll introduce it for you. Introduce it for you. There are 34 kinds of death penalty charges in China. 34 kinds. You can see that. The crime of endangering national security. First one, endangering national security. So there are 7 kinds, there are 7 circumstances, such as betraying the state, splitting the country, rebellion, and defecting to the enemy. And also some espionage, right? Stealing, spying, buying, and illegally providing state secrets for foreign countries. Also, financing enemy. This is one kind. Next. What's the problem?
When they say enemy, what's the enemy?
Huh?
When they say enemy, like stealing.
Or what is the enemy?
Yeah, what's the enemy?
I want to introduce the enemy to you. I prepared something to introduce the enemy to you next class. Enemy means that. Enemy means that maybe you will split our country. You 反对. How to translate? You object about the system of state in our country. You know, system of state or system of government, or you do something harm to the 4 principles of China. 4项基本原则 4 principles, such as can I speak in Chinese? I feel very difficult to something to tell you. I know that I cannot find the exact words in English to tell you. I can find the PPT, okay? Wait. Wait for a minute. I will find the PPT. Maybe tell you what is the enemy. Can you see that? dictatorship will to the enemy. So enemy normally means that do something dangerous to people, destabilizing factor to society, such as punish corrupt elements, stopping social unrest, suppressing the foreign hostile forces. You know. Sometimes there are three basic principles. If you do not conform to the four principles of China, may be regarded as enemy. So I tell you. Wait a minute. Yes. Maximum Lenin's and Mao Zedong thought. Yes, Maxim Lenin's I don't know how to read it. Maxim Lenin's and Mao Zedong thought.
Lenin.
Yes, Lenin.
Russian.
Yes. And Mao Zedong thought. If you do not conform, it and male may be regarded as enemy. So. Next, we'll see that crime of endangering public security. Endangering public security, such as arson, making water, explosion, poisoning. Endangering public security by dangerous means. So what is endangering public security by dangerous means? Suppose that if someone drive the bus, drive the car, rush into the crowded people. So that will be constitute the crime of endangering public security by dangerous means. And also about destroying the means of transportation, traffic facilities destroyed, or electric power equipment destroyed, or so you can see that. Okay. Next, disrupting the socialist economic order. Disrupting socialist economic order, such as producing, selling counterfeit drugs, producing, selling poisonous, harmful food. But I don't think you have chance to do it because we are all students, but not the commercial person, right? First chapter about infringing upon citizens' personal rights, democratic rights, such as intentional homicide, intentional injury, rape, kidnapping, abducting and selling women and children. Yes. Fifth, infringing upon property, robbery, such as and impairing social management order. Next is endangering the interests of national defense. National defense, capital crimes, endanger weapons, equipment. Or maybe I think you have no chance to buy it. Intentionally providing unqualified weapons. military facilities. Corruption and bribery. Capital crimes. You just know something about it. But I think many, all of you will not do it, right? Just know. So, last I told you about something relating to the legal system in China. But now I will introduce something in all over the country, including your country. That is a classification also. It's a classification of law, but it's academic classification. That means this kind of classification may be classified, may be happening in China, but all of the countries may be relating to it. First is written law, next is unwritten, and also some substantive, also procedure, public, private, criminal, civil law. Every country has this. Look at this. So what is written law? Written law. Written law means statutory. We also call it statutory law. It's enacted and promulgated by the states. So China has many written law. So the power of judge is limited. If some kinds of thing has not embodied in the written law, maybe the judge cannot make the decision. But in recent years, something also changed. So later I will tell you. Next, unwritten law include customary laws, case laws, and common law. Among these, I will emphasize the last common law. I know that customary law, we all know that what is customary law, right? That's before the law is made and it's 实行, emulates as the customs in the society. Many African countries have customary laws. The students, the classmates, last classmates told me. So maybe someday I will make the homework for you to introduce your customary law in your country, or introduce the constitution law in your country. Do some homework. We'll choose some class, 就是有一节课啊 to do this. So, case law. Do you know what is case law? What is case law? Here, case. Case law means judge make the decision. So when the same situation or same cases happen, the judge will apply the decision again. That is case law. Okay, let's have a rest for 10 minutes. Okay. The letter come here to sign your name, and it is very important. It will constitute the score of your. Okay, let's continue. So, look at this. If you want to take part in the work study, what you should do. First, require to submit the original work study agreement signed with your employers to the college, and the college will review the application materials and will issue a letter of certification and consent. So that's the formal procedure. And sometimes we will submit the original of the Bible materials to the local exit and entry administration for visa and immigration. And in case of work-related injuries and other accidents, international, you should immediately report to international students' office. First thing you should do is to telephone the person in international student office and foreign-related departments and public security bureau. But I think that if it is not related to personal injuries, if not concerning to the personal injuries, I think that you will, you'd better not borrow the public security bureau. So, in case of any dispute between the employer and the international students, dispute should be settled through negotiation according to the signed agreement. Best way is negotiation, I think. If both parties cannot resolve the dispute through negotiation, labor dispute agency can arbitrate. Here, labor dispute agency is the authority you can 寻求帮助. Okay. The international students office can provide necessary legal assistance. So if you confront some difficulties, you can ask for the student's office to help you to translate. So that's the law stipulates your rights. Your rights. So there are some other obligations about you. First is record of physical examination. So I think all of you have finished it. Physical examination. And just have a look. I will not read. You can have a look. So I will change the paper. Okay? So, insurance system for all the international students. International students must be insured in accordance with the relevant national regulations, requirements of school. Fail to purchase insurance in accordance with the religions, you will be insured within a time limit. Fail to do so may be not admitted by the university. So the insurance is very important. You remember to 续费. Next, our country constitutes information management system for the international students. So all the information will record in the systems. If anything is changing, so remember to this kind of system to do. So you can see that? Yes. Okay. Next, international students who violate the provisions of law under administration. Oh, here's some laws you can search in internet. There are 4 rules. First is administration of exit and entry, and penalties for public security, and entry and exit for foreigners, religious activities of foreigners within the territory of China. Do you know 4 rules? Do you know?
Why is it?
Part of some of provisions no. So later I will find the laws for you. Okay? You should know. That is the. So what I said is about the norms in universities. However, there are all kinds of laws in our country. Maybe you think that I will stay in campus. I will not go out. So to me, there is no need to know the laws. But in fact, it's necessary for you to study other laws. Let's see some example. This happened on July 9th, 2019. An international student from Fujian Agriculture and Forestry University, Fujian Province, and was stopped by traffic police for driving an electric car. Do you drive an electric car? Sometimes you need. Just bicycle.
Electric bike.
Oh, so if you drive this kind of instruments, can you carry people?
No.
Some places you can carry people, but in Changsha in city, you cannot carry people. If you drive this kind of instruments out of the campus and on the road, maybe will be stopped by the police. So the man carries people and based on language, personality, and other factors, he refused to cooperate with the police and clashed with the traffic police. So subsequently, the man was summoned to traffic police brigade for further treatment. So what he has done violated two regulations. First one, you can see that in traffic violations in China, he drives electric vehicles to carry people. It's not permitted, but he did it. This is the first behavior that's not conform to the law. And second, if happened anything, he refuses to cooperate with the police. Refused to cooperate with the police and clashed with the police. So it's harmful to public affairs and should be punished by public security. So not only the people's police, but also if you do something obstructing the functionaries of state organs, that include many authorities, administrative authorities. So according to the law, this kind of thing will be heavily punished. So what about severely or heavily punishment? You can see that? Look at this. According to Article 10 of the law on administrative penalties for public security, whoever commits one of the following acts, such as obstructing functionaries of state organs from performing their duties, so maybe given a warning. It's a minor situation. Give a warning. Just tell you shouldn't do it and you can go. But it really happened. And most of the time you will be fined of not more than 200 yuan. For example, if you drive a car and 闯红灯, run cross the red light, you will be fined 200 yuan. So that's the same thing. And if the symptoms are serious, you may be detained for not less than 5 days, but not more than 10 days. That means that temporarily you will lose your personal freedom. So, and if you do something that is seriously, maybe the best consequence, the most bad consequence may be deported or expelled within an additional time limit. So this is related law in our country, but this is just one of the law, and its fact is not the. For me, to contrast it with the criminal law, this kind of circumstance is 比较轻is 怎么说？就是不是很严重。It's not severely compared with the criminal law. It's not heavily, right? So this is just one of, and it belongs to the administrative law. So the nature of this kind of behavior is similar with you drive a bus and run through the red light. The nature is the same. However, there are other things. There are many behaviors that may constitute crime. So look at this. Look at this. Do you know this name? I think everyone knows. Chen Long. Golf star, very famous star, right? And he won the Oscar Life Achievement Award. And do you know him? The boy. He is Chen Long's son. And his name is Fang Fumi. In Chinese name, Fang Fumi. And he is his friend. But some bad thing happened. In 2015, Fang Fumi and his friends were caught by the police because they took drugs. And finally, he was charged of providing a venue for drug users and is sentenced to 6 months in prison. But his name is Ke Zhendong. Here. Ke Zhendong, do you know him? Also a star in Taiwan. Sometimes in Hong Kong to take part in a TV program. But in the same place, both of the two men do the same thing. They took drugs. However, Fang Fumi was sentenced 6 months imprisonment. But his friend just given 14 days in administrative detention. So do you know what's the difference? What's the difference about administrative detention and imprisonment? Be sentenced imprisonment. What's the difference? The nature is difference. The nature. Be given 14 days in the administrative detention. The nature of it is the same thing as you drive a bus and run across red light. You just pay for the money, and you just stay the police office or the police place just 15 days, and you can God and have no other influence for you. But if you be sentenced to imprisonment, that means that in our country, the agency will have recourse for these kind of behaviors in your files. And when you come out of the prison, wherever you go, and these records will comply with you. And if some others, if you want to find a job, the employees will check the records, and maybe he will not employ you. So that's the difference. So, what? Do the same thing in the same time. Why the two men have different treated? Here, note that provide a venue. Do you know provide a venue? Provide a venue. That means 房祖名 invite others to his house. Okay, let's have drugs. So why has bad influence on the society? So if you take drugs in your room and just by yourself, it will influence other people. But if you provide a place and absorb many people to your home, and let's together take drugs, that will influence many people, and it will take bad influence in the society. So that is suppose that if it's changed, this kind of thing is not happening in Fang Zuming's house, but happening in his friend Ke Zhendong's house. So the consequence will be different. That depends on this house belongs to whom. Look at this. First, we should know criminal detention is different from administrative detention. Criminal detention means that there are records of criminal offenses and stored in the public security department. And if released, it will be difficult to find a job and be looked down upon by people, and illegal acts involved in criminal law have serious social conflicts. Business, they are not employ such people. So many people get out or leave from the imprisonment. He may be offense the crime again, commit a crime again, because he cannot find a job. And older people will keep distance from this kind of thing. But administrative detention not exists such things. Sometimes administrative detention applies to persons who committed general offenses. But criminal penalties applies to persons suspected of committing crimes. So it's difference. And look at this code. Criminal law in our country, Article 354. Whoever provides shelter for any other person to ingest or inject narcotic drugs shall be sentenced to a fixed term imprisonment of not more than 3 years, criminal detention, or public surveillance are also be fined. So do you know public surveillance? Do you know? The same thing is that it will deprive your personal freedom. Same thing. So, we have talked about take drugs, right? Let's look some codes related to it in our country. Article 347, those who commit the crimes of smuggling, trafficking, transporting, transporting and manufacturing drugs, regardless of quantity of drugs. Note that, regardless of the quantity. If a little in your hands, so maybe you will be touched, maybe. So, those who illegally hold more than 1,000 grams of opium or more than 5 grams of heroin or large quantities of other drugs are to be sentenced to more than 7 years of fixed term imprisonment or life imprisonment, and in addition be sentenced to a fine. So, this behavior, illegally hold. So, many of you may think that, teacher, I will not take drugs. I have no need to know it. Of course, I believe that all of you will not will keep a distance away from the drugs. But sometimes something will happen that you didn't know your behavior is violating the law. Suppose that if you haven't enough money and your best friend, maybe he took the drugs but you don't know. And he said, please help me and take the goods, go out country, 就是过境, go out of the country. So he will give you some money, maybe 很多 many money give you and help him to carry the goods. But you don't know the goods may be behind the drugs. So this crime related to this kind of thing. Whether you do know or don't know, you couldn't say, I don't know. So I will not, I have no crime because I don't know. No. If the police find that you hold the drugs, whether you know or don't know, you will be put into prison. So, I suggest you, anytime, anywhere, be careful about carrying goods from others, even he is your best friend. So, if necessary, I suppose that you can take these things firstly to the check office and tell them that this is my friend 祈求怎么讲 pledged me to carry, and please check it whether there are some other things in it. I think it is the best way, because many times many students did not know the code and commit a crime.
In that case,
But he's innocent. Actually, he was innocent.
in that case, they will not arrest you.
Ah.
In the case where you tell them that you ask them to check your.
对, you initiatively ask them to check and tell him that I don't know whether there are anything in these goods. Please check it. This is my friend's Momomo. Tell me to bring. I think it's the best way. Okay. So, Article 349. Those who provide cover for criminals who have engaged in smuggling, trafficking, transport, and manufacturing drugs, and those who hide, move, cancel drugs and properties of criminals, if the criminal is your best friend. You did not take the drugs, but you hide him, cancel. So, you see that be sentenced to less than 3 years or fixed term imprisonment, detaining or control. And there are other crimes. Just simply introduce them to you. Illegally producing, trading, transporting, and the smuggling, and illegally planting original drug plants. Maybe you have no chance, right? You have no place. Illegally trading, transferring, carrying, or holding the seeds will also be constituted crime. So, Article 353, those who lure. I don't know, I said this one, lure, right? Instigate or trick others into taking or injecting drugs are to be sentenced to 3 years or fewer in prison. So what's the range about drugs? Referring to opium, heroin, ice, morphine. So you can see that this also belongs to the drugs. Is there any difference in your country? The stipulations?
Same.
The same. That's okay. Look at this. If some amount not arise, the quantity of the criminal punishment that maybe constitutes the offense in public security admission. You can see that illegally possessing a penny of less than 200 grams or providing another person with narcotic drugs, ingesting or injecting. So, be detained for less than 10 days, but not more than 50 days. So, Cousin Long is commit is do this kind of behavior and according to this code. So, next. I don't know whether it is legal in your country, but in our country it is forbidden. His name, his Chinese name, Yan, Mo. And it is not, do you know? A college student took out his bird's nest in front of his house and caught 16 bird falcons. He was sentenced to 10.5 years imprisonment for the crime of illegally harming or killing raptors or endangered wild animals.
So hard.
Just kill a bird and put it in prison. So maybe you think that there are many birds in our campus. Can I catch it and kill it? And maybe I will put it in prison. It has the risk because we don't know whether we catch the bird is belong to the precious animals, right? I cannot say that what I catch is belongs to the precious animals. So the best way you should do is that don't hurt animals. Include dogs, include cats.
Even a snake.
What?
Even a snake.
What?
Snake.
A snake? I dare not. Many of us dare not. So, look at this. Because the falcons is different from pigeons or sparrows, the amount of them is very little. It's very small amount in our China. So, my mirror is environmental law. My mirror. Remember, is environmental law. We can do something to preserve the environment and cannot kill animals, protect the precious animals. Okay? Class is over. I have. And thank you for attending a class. And this is our textbook. To print? Oh, you can find your office. Okay, class is over. Thank you. And it has its effect. Irish law is different. Before it is enacted, it actually exists in our life. So, next classification is substantive law and procedural law. What's the condition about rights and obligation belongs to the substantive law. And it can be divided into criminal law, criminal law, contract law, tort law, and many other kinds. But the procedural law deals with the protection and enforcement of rights and obligation. It's normally relating to the lawsuit is begun, the trial is conducted, or how appeals are taken, and how judgment is enforced. So the procedural law, in some extent, is served for the substantial law. So that's the difference. Look at this example. You can see that A and B enter into agreement, and A claims that B has breached the agreement. So, the rules that provide for bringing B to court and for the conduct of the trial are mechanical and constitute procedural law. However, actually whether the agreement is enforceable and whether A is entitled to damages, it belongs to the substantive law. So that's the difference. Next, customary law. It's the summation of certain mandatory norms of conduct independent of national statute and based on certain social authority and social organization. That means this kind of rules recognized by the state organs. Recognized. That means absorb them to the system of law. Absorb them. For example, we can see that the first law after the founding of New China, the marriage law, provides that stipulates that marriage should be prohibited among the linear relatives of other 5 generations and from customs. Do you know that people within 5 generations have no chance to marriage? You know, close relative. So that is customs. But nowadays, in China's marriage, the related provisions is amended from 5 generations to 3 generations. But the former absorbed the customs to the law. This is customary law. So why? Look at this. It is nowadays marriage law of China. Nowadays, direct blood relatives and related blood relatives within 3 generations is prohibited. and the medical diseases that do not justify marriage. And also something, registration orders stipulates that marriage registration organs shall not register marriages if they belong to a lenient how to read this word? Consanguinity, right? Consanguinity, or to lenient consanguinity within 3 generations. This is nowadays marriage law. So, do you know what's the harm about close relatives to get married? Do you know this man? Do you know? Famous scientist David and his cousin Emmer. They have close relatives, and they have 6 children, 3 died, and 5 long-term infertility, because they has blood relationship within the 3 generations. So that's why our marriage law has so stipulates. So, next question. How to calculate the 3 generations of close relatives?
Yeah.
How to calculate?
Your father, you, and your son.
Not only this, look at this. If the middle of it is you, most of you boy, some girls. So, parents, this is child, 3 generations, right? But if the parents, brothers or sisters, if the husband, if the father's brothers, sisters, right? That exists direct blood. This is direct blood. And another is hetero blood relatives. So, in fact, all the people in the picture have, if they among these exist marriage, will be not accepted by law, by Chinese law. Inaccurate. So, include brothers, sisters, cousins, sisters, uncles, nieces, right? Nieces, aunts, nephews, all belong to the generations, all of them. So, is it possible to enter into marriage between persons who have a fictitious blood relationship? Do you know what is fictitious blood relationship? Adopt. No. That means you have not really blood relationship, but someone's parents died, and other aunts or uncles adopt the children. But this kind of relationship is also included in the 3 generations in China. So if you adopt some children and hope that when he grow up, maybe you can have a marriage with her? No. So what's the consequence if the father and the adopted children get married? What's the consequence? Look at this. Rights and obligations between foster parents and adoptive children, step-parents and step-children who receive their upbringing and education shall be governed by the relevant provisions concerning relationship between parents and children. Therefore, different generations of features consanguinity should not be married. The reason is here. Why? The reason is here. Because the first parents, from using the relations, maybe use the relationship to force marriage in order to avoid this circumstance happen. So we have the provision. Do you think maybe sometimes it's fair to the adopted girls or boys, right? So what's the consequence? We know that sometimes what stipulation in China is one thing, what stipulation in law is one thing. However, the action is another thing, right? So look at this. Do you know this old man, old people? Woody Allen. You can search his name in internet. It's very very famous in America. Woody Allen is a 导演. Do you know 导演?
TikTok.
Well, I will check it.
TikTok, man. Director.
Famous so I write it here. Famous film director married his adopted daughter Song Yi in 1997. So they lived for many years. But in America is another thing. But this kind of thing in China, if the spouses decided to divorce, so his daughter cannot share the property of Woody Allen's. Because the marriage in China, if the couples decided to divorce, and the common property can be divided equal. That means everyone will receive the 50% of the property. Another party will 50% of the property. Do you know? That means in China, both husband and wife has the same proportion of inheritance. Same proportion. Suppose that the property's value, suppose that 100%. So if two people divorce, each of any, so both of the parties can receive 50% of the property, equal, be divided equal.
So if they have a son or daughter,
but if they have the agreement, is another thing. If they have no agreement,
if they have children,
if they have children, that will depend on the children will belongs to which part of them will belong. Because children have no right to realize the inheritance. The children's property will belong to the one of the parents who foster him or her. But normally, the property of the children happened in 继承. That happening, one of the parents died. So, most of the time, the property will be divided between husband and wife. And according to marriage law, it will be shared equal. But this kind of marriage will not be accepted by Chinese law. So if two person divorced, so the daughter have no right to share the husband's property. So that's the consequence. So we can see that intimate marriage is invalid if a civil dispute arises between the parties, such as property and inheritance. Neither party can be protected by the marriage law. If one party dies, and the party cannot inherit property according to the marriage law. So that's the consequence. So I found some African customary law. I don't know. Something I searched in the internet, and something I talked with the last class. It holds that land is public, right? In Africa, land is public, right? No? Sometimes? Or in your country?
No, not public.
Not public.
No.
Belongs to private person.
Yeah,
And
maximum.
can sell it to others. And can change the use of the land. Oh, that's the difference. And Sudan. Any student come from Sudan? Last class, I have a student come from Sudan. Here? No? There is a customary law in Sudan to punish murders by paying blood money to the families of victims. The same in your country. So what do you think about the customary law? Do you think it is fair or not?
Blood money means
Blood money means if someone killed another and another person's family can receive the money from the criminal, and the criminal will not put into prison. So many people think that maybe it is unfair. So why? Suppose that you are a poor man. If you do something, committed crime, and you will lose your personal liability, right? But if you are rich people, if you are rich, you have lots of money. So that means you can use this money to buy other person's life.
what about China?
No, not exist in China. But on the other hand, there are some reasonable reasons. Suppose that if the man had died, his family lost the support, right? Maybe the blood money can support the poor family. Because some people think that if you put the criminal to prison, but cannot change the fact that the man has died, right? So I think it's in some extent is reasonable, but another circumstance is unfair to all the people. So I told you that law is not equal to every people, but to most people, majority. You cannot count. The law can resolve anything. That's impossible. Yes, impossible. So these blood money provisions come from customers. It has reasonable, but sometimes maybe not fair to all the people. In marriage, if a man's wife dies, the sister who marries the deceased wife is given priority. So any of you, the countries have the similar provisions? No? Some of countries in Africa have the provisions. Man's wife dies, the sister who marries the deceased wife is given priority. I think it is a virtue showing that men have compassion and can take care of their deceased wives and sisters instead. But I have another question. If the woman reluctant to marry the man, what will happen? So I don't know, but I know some phenomena in some countries. For minors, once their parents divorce, their custody rests with their father's family because Africa is a patriarchal society. Children are raised in large families, right? Large family. Large family. I think it's a very good provision about it. But I have a question. If divorced, but the mother, you know that father have no ability to give birth, right? If the children belong to her father, but what's right about her mother or his mother? That means if his mother wants to raise the children, but he must abide by the customary law, and he have to let her children to husband's family. So any provisions to protect the women's rights? Have some provisions to protect the women's rights? This number. Any countries in your the same provisions in your country? Anyone? Yes. Well, what about the mother? If he reluctant to let his son to the man's big family, so what's the right of her?
If she wants to keep the child.
If he wants to raise the children by herself.
Oh, they have to go to court.
Or go to court. Oh.
Yes, go to court. You give reasons why he cannot raise the child.
Oh, give reasons. And the court will decide.
Will decide.
Oh, yes, that's okay. So, think about what's the customary laws in your country. One day, I hope you will tell me what's the customary law. And so if you can't find the customary law in your country, maybe you can introduce your constitutional law in your country to us. Constitutional law. So you can choose. Next week we will have a holiday.
Yes.
Yes. After the holiday, maybe you can prepare the homework for me. So I hope some of you come to here to introduce the customary law or the constitutional law in your country to all of us. Okay? Yes. It also grow the minds. It's a very good chance to grow the minds. So,
Non, je donnerai d'abord, ça je donne. Va maintenant, tu sais.
Look at the definition about customary law. It's the summation of certain mandatory norms of conduct independent from national statutes, law, and based on certain social authority and social organizations. Goes through the process from local to national. So, case law. The rule of case.
Can you turn back? Previous.
Oh, come back. Okay. Take a picture. Based on social authority, social organization. Case law means the rule of law in a judgment applies not only to the case, but also to the case under the jurisdiction of the court or the lower court as precedent. Precedent, you know precedent. The formal decisions will apply to the later similar cases. Is the main source of law in common law countries, such as England or America. Its source is not a special legislature, but a result of judges' trial of a case that only created by the legislator, but by judiciary. So if you have chance to go to England or America, you will find the status of judge is higher than the president, than anyone else. He has very large power of changing the society. So case law, also called judgment law. Judgment law. That means in these countries, if that something is not stated in the law's provision, the judge can decide the case according to the law's principles. Not according to the provision, but according to the law's principle, he can make the decision. However, it many times will not happen in China. Because we not belong to the common law system, but belong to the civil law system. So from all over the world, the law system can be divided into two parts. First is civil system, and next is common law system. It's very different in these countries. But it doesn't mean that from ancient times to nowadays, China haven't experienced or have no case law. It doesn't mean that. Because you can see that China began to use this law to hear cases in Western Zhou dynasty. Western Zhou, do this ancient, you need know the dynasty? No, many years ago. In Western Zhou dynasty, the case law called matter at that time, and was the focus of legal norms. So the so-called deliberation is based on system, not on punishment. That is to say, first cases are chosen as the basis of the current trial, and the statute code is not formulated in advance. So you can see that the number. The law of Great Qing dynasty compiled in Tongzhi 9 years of the Qing dynasty brings together 1,892 cases as the basis for the trial cases. It's in ancient time in China. So today I will tell you emphasis about the definition about common law. Common law is a very special law. It's not promulgated by the state order, not by the king. It is not an order by the king. But normally we see the law is static. Static, you know? Static. The counter word is dynamic. Static. Normally law is static. When he promulgated, is static. But the common law is dynamic process. Why? Why? You can see that. The origin. So first see, it is a customary law and a case law that is universally applicable throughout the country by the British royal courts, and is a result of the establishment of a centralized system and the strengthening of royal power. So this kind of law created in British and at the same time, or original from the development of England. So we can see that. you no need to take this picture. You just regard it as a story. This is not concerning to the. So, what's the origin of common law? What's the origin? You know these two races. First is Celts, next is Iberians. In the 7th century BC, the British Alsace were inhabited by two races, Celts and Iberians. According to they lived and communicated with their habits. But in 5th century AD, Germanic tribes invaded and permeated the Germanic customary law into the islanders. So this is Germanic people. But it's very surprising that the Germanic people didn't constitute one kingdom. They constitute 3 kingdoms. 3? Seven kingdoms. And each of them will be divided into several counties. And below the counties followed is 100 household districts. And each of the 100 household districts, there are 10 household districts. So the sheriffs and the chiefs are not only administrators but also judges of law courts. So the same thing happened, or the same crime may be provided differently in different counties, different kingdoms, or different districts. Is a normal thing. That means each of the districts have great autonomy, great power of autonomy. So many years passed. Then, do you know the man? Alfred. In 871 AD, some author called it Great Alfred because he did a very big thing. He unified the England, but he did not constitute kingdom. So who constituted the kingdom is William, but I cannot find the picture of the William. I found many pictures about the Alfred, so I sent it to you. The William constituted the kingdom, and the royal court by the kingdom published many laws, and it can applied by royal courts, and some places directly controlled by the court, by the kingdom. Some places directly controlled. However, other local districts, because they decided the case by their own customary law, so the kingdom feel that he is not satisfied with the situation, because the rose course rules cannot apply to local districts. So he thought he had an idea how to resolve the problem. Then he trained some this is security judges trained, and sent the security judges to district areas in the whole country. So the security judge's job is to hear the cases, but the residents in the area have a choice. You can choose to bring the court before the security judges, and at the same time, you can choose to district court judges. You have the choice. But suppose that You are the ordinary people. You are quarrel with others. However, others is rich people. So what do you think about it? Or which court will you to bring the case to? The court of security judges or the court of the chief administrators in this area? I think most of the people will choose to security judges. Why? Because he has a little relationship between the rich people in this area. Maybe his decision is justified, is justice. So more and more people find the security judges to resolve their private problems or private quarrels or private disputes. And through many years, the security judges will try the case, abide by the rules of rule law. At the same time, he will absorb the reasonable factors in the customary law, but mainly he will apply the rules of rule law. So we say that through the process of judging, they make the customary law of all parts of British tend to be unified. Sometimes will differ, but mostly will unify. Therefore, common law is a customary law unified by will of the state. Will. And is not a case promulgating the word overnight, nor a simple local customary law, but a dynamic process of integrating the rules and the local customary law. So we call it universal law or common applicable. Okay? Class is over today. See you tomorrow. Okay? Bye.